And we always hear the item that comes up. Look what you've done. You're a hypocrite. You call yourself a Christian? You can't witness to somebody else. And we come to point 3 in your bulletin. And I'd like to have everybody read that verse, because we're going to go into that verse pretty heavily this morning. Number 3, it says, our adversary, and this is 1 Peter 5:8. If everybody will read that together, begin. Now that's a version of the New International Version. In the King James it reads, be sober and vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. There's 4 points in these 2 verses that I want to bring out this morning, because this is really the crux of where we look at 2 Corinthians 5:17, and we somehow forget what it says. And it's not hard to do when we look at this verse. Because the first point, in the NIV it says, be self-controlled and alert. In the King James it says, be sober and vigilant. We are not in a safe environment. We may be living in the United States and we don't have rocket-propelled grenades flying into Makakilo. But we as spiritual beings are not in a safe environment. We must continually be aware of the potential of the devil. We live in a fallen, cursed world, and the only thing that holds back the evil of the enemy is the common grace that God has provided so that many can be saved. We may not be in the mountains of Afghanistan carrying a weapon, but we're still in danger every day. Now, if you're a Christian, the devil can't take your salvation away from you. That will never happen. But he can cripple you. He can put you in the ditch and make you of no use. So how does he do this? In the NIV, he's called the enemy. Now, an enemy you can see, you can hear, you can identify, and you can deal with that. When we think about the enemy, we think about a war going on where you have 2 separate sides, and the lines are very easily drawn, and you know who is on one side and who's on the other. But the King James uses the word adversary. And the word adversary means accuser. And an accuser in the courtroom. An accuser that accuses us of not being who we should be. And what does he do? He takes what we do, and we're all sinners, we all fail, we all fall short. And he takes that information, he goes before God, and he says, look at what your Christian has done. Look at what Loyd has done today. Look at what he said to that person on the road as he drove on the freeway. Look at what he said to that coworker. Look at what he didn't do that he was supposed to do as a Christian. And believe me, he has all the evidence to convict. But do you think God listens to him? Do you really think God listens to him? No, he doesn't. God does not listen to him, so he goes to somebody else that will listen to him. And who's that? You and me. He'll come right to us and tell us exactly what we did wrong And all of a sudden, 2 Corinthians 5:17 tends to float away into the background, and we end up focusing on that sin or that transgression or that failure. It says in this verse that Satan is like a roaring lion, or as a roaring lion. Now, if anybody goes to the zoo, we see these animals behind cages with no real environment that they normally live in. We don't see their habitat unless you watch something on TV. But a lion is a predator. It is an animal that will wait for hours for their prey to pass by and pounce upon them. It waits for those strays that go away from the herd. The devil knows you and me. He has observed us from birth. He knows what we watch, what we buy, who we hang out with. It's a given that he's going to attack. But how he attacks me is not going to be the way he attacks you. I can tell you, as I sat in that chair before I came up here, those thoughts came in and tried to distract me from this message. It happens, and it happens to every one of us. It's easy for us to become vulnerable. And that's by stop attending church, Bible studies, family ministries, or just plain stop reading the Word. It's very easy to give in to those attacks at that point. And the last point I want to bring out in this verse is in the King James, he says he's looking for someone to devour, and in the NIV, and in the King James it says whom he shall devour. He's looking for you and I. As a Christian, we become targets. We've chosen sides. We're no longer in the world. We're a bigger target, so to speak.